Kelly Dale with Off the Beaten Path. I have a studio location in Forest City, North Carolina. I have a website called offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com, and you can find me just about every week here on YouTube. I am so glad that you're here today because I'm going to be showing you a new ring design. I call this ring the Mood Ring 2.0 because back in 2019, I showed you how to make a mood ring out of an oval faceted stone. And to date, it's one of my most popular videos. People love it. It's quick, it's easy, especially because you don't have to encase the back of it. So I got these beautiful mood stones that are rounded and they're circular. I've got a 14 millimeter and an 18 millimeter, and I thought I need to do another ring because it's so fun. Everybody who's seen this design so far here in the store has really, really loved it and enjoyed making it. So hopefully you will too. I'm going to be showing you how to make the 18 millimeter version of the ring today. The pattern itself that's for sale on my website, again, offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com, is going to have the instructions for the 18 millimeter and the 14 millimeter. So if you're somebody who likes something a little bit smaller, you might want to go grab that pattern to watch and see how that 14 millimeter is done. But here's what you're going to need for your project. You're going to need an 18 millimeter round mood stone. You're also going to need 1 gram of a size 15 Miyuki seed bead. You're going to need 3 grams of a size 11 cylinder Delica bead. You're going to need 1 gram of a size 11 seed bead. Now that can be Miyuki or Toho. It does not matter on the brand there. You're going to need about 2.5 yards of your favorite thread, as well as a size 12 beading needle. The size 12 is going to work wonders, so make sure it's a 12. Okay, so that's what you're going to need for the 18. Again, if you wanted to do the 14, the materials list for that is on the pattern. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So here's the ring I'm going to show you how to make today. I love this ring. I've had the best time with this ring, but there is something that you need to understand about the ring. So this green one here, I actually made this one and this beautiful blue one, which I do not have finished yet, but I used these out of my stash, meaning that I pulled these stones out of a earlier stash of shipment and made the rings, and I love them. Well, when I went downstairs to pull some off the shelf, they are a little bit more domed. They're not as low as the ones that I have here. They're just a smidge bigger. So they will look just a little bit different. They're going to be a little bit wider here, and that's completely okay. I will tell you what you can do if you want to get closer to this look on the stone, this bigger stone. I will show you how to do that, talk you through that, but I like both looks of them. I think they're a lot of fun. So this is the stone that we're going to be using today. If it comes and like I've got one that's got just a little bit of a defect right here on the side, and I've had a couple like this, so I think they must, I don't know how these are done, but I almost wonder if they're attached some way to each other and they break them apart. I really don't know because I've had just a couple of these like this, but this is okay because we are going to cover it completely up so you won't see that. So if you have a little defect here just along the edging, that's completely okay. You can see, again, these are the 18s. This is what I'm going to be using today. You can see where it's turning from where the heat from my hand is, and I love that. And then these two little guys right here, these are the 14s. So this is the size that the 14 is going to be, and the 18. So you can see the size difference there in the rings. Now, if you don't have a mood stone, that's completely okay. You can use any 18 millimeter stone to do this as long as it has a dome top and a flat bottom. Now, these are some cabs that I ordered. I think they were probably actually buttons at one time. I'm not sure. But these, even though this has a little spot here in the bottom of it, that's okay because I'm going to be covering that up here on the bottom. So nobody's going to see that. So if you have something that maybe has any sort of little defect there on the back, don't worry about it. It's completely okay. But like I said, you don't have a mood stone, you can definitely use a stone like this. So I'm going to set all these to the side here. All the colors that I've used on these, you can see these on the pattern because I'll show you two. This is This is another version. This is something I'm going to be showing you next week, how to take this same design and kind of make it into a really simple bracelet that you can have the ring and the bracelet to go with. So, you know, they're a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun with them, and don't be limited to the moonstone. If you don't have one, it's okay. So I'm going to set all this to the side, and we're going to talk about our thread. So today I'm going to be using the size 6 in the white dragon thread. You can use pretty much whatever kind of thread you want. The only issue is if you use something like a wildfire, it's going to be a little bit tighter, and you're going to have a little bit harder time getting your stone to set into place. So I'm going to be using my 15, my 11, and my Delica today. And I'm going to be starting out with my size 11 Delicas. I have 2.5 yards of thread onto my needle. I'm specifically using a size 13 today just because I've kind of fallen in love with those. But I'm going to pick up 4 of my size 11 Delica beads. I'm going to grab a hold of those 4 and bring them down. I'm not going to be using this tail thread for anything. So all I want to do is just leave myself a couple of inches of tail thread here. And then I'm going to go back through all 4 of those beads one more time. And once I pull those through, then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come through, well, no, sorry, getting ahead of myself there. I'm going to tie the tail thread and the working thread together. Okay, just like that. Now, I'm going to continue on from that knot there. I'm going to continue on through 3 of my beads. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so I've gone through 3 beads. I have a little box of 4 here, and now I'm ready to start the strip of beads. Okay, so I'm coming out of the bottom of this Delica here. So I'm going to pick up 3 Delica beads. My thread is coming out of the bottom, so I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come right back through that very same Delica bead again so that it makes a little circle. And I'm going to pull this all the way through. And I'm going to continue through 2 beads. I'm going to go through this bead and this bead here to get into position for my next little right angle weave box. You can notice I keep my fingers on the beads as I pull the thread straight up the way that it's coming out of the encasement. So my thread is coming out of the top here. I pick up 3 Delicas and I'm going to come back through the same bead again so that it makes a circle. I'm going to keep my finger on there, pull it through, and then I'm going to go through 2 beads of the box that I just added. So I go through 1 and 2. Put my finger on it, pull that through. 3 beads. Come back around to make my circle here. And then I'm going to go through 2 beads of the box that I just added. So as of right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. And I'm going to continue doing this until I have 19 total boxes. All right, so I have my 19 boxes. So if I just double count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 of my boxes there. And so that is going to be about 2 1/4 inches of the strip there, so you can see it in, my friends, with centimeters and inches. So that's about how long your strip should be. Now we're ready to take and connect the end of our strip to the beginning of our strip. So my thread is coming out of the bottom of this strip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up one Delica, I'm going to bring my thread across, or my needle across, and I'm going to go up through the end bead here of the very first one that I've done. Now, just for video's sake, I am not going to pull this through all the way tight. I'm going to leave it be so that you can see what's happening here. Get my bead down there so you can see that. All right. So now I'm going to pick up one more Delica bead, and I'm going to take my needle from here to here so that I have a complete circle. Okay. And again, I'm not going to pull it tight yet because I want you to see there what we've got. So we've got a bead connecting here and one connecting here. Now I'm going to put my finger in here and I'm going to pull this so that it pulls it together just like that. Now I'm coming out here, so I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go around through these beads again here. Okay, so that my thread is exiting just like this. Now I need to build a second row to this. We've got to have 2 rows of our right angle weave. So I'm going to be picking up 3 of my Delica beads, and I'm going to come back through the same bead again so that it makes a circle. And I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come up through the bead right above where my thread is coming out. This is what we call our little side connector bead. I'm going to pick up 2 beads because every box has 4 beads. Currently I have, let me get it here, I have 1 bead right here and 1 bead right here. So I only have to pick up 2, and I'm going to come around, I'm going to make a circle. So I'm going to go through this bead, and if you can do it at the same time, it's helpful. So I'll go through those 2 beads. So I go through the base bead and then the connector bead. And you can see I go back the way that my thread was coming out. I'm going to continue through the 2 beads that I just added. So 1, 2, and then through the top bead here on the base. So 1, 2, and 3. So it's a side bead and a base bead here. And they're going to look wonky, and that's okay. They're not going to straighten up until we work on the encasement some more. So again, I have 2 beads, 1, 2 here of my box. So I pick up 2, and I'm going to come back through those same 2 beads again to make a little circle. Now I'm going to take my needle and go up through the bead right above where my thread is coming out, which is that little side connector bead. Pick up 2 beads, and I'm going to come to the next base bead, and I'm going to go through that bead and the side connector bead that my thread is coming out of. I'm going to continue through the 2 beads of the box, so 1 and 2, and then the next bead here. All right, so you can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes so far. And I'm just kind of keeping this around my finger. It's just easier to do it this way. So I pick up 2 beads, and I'm going to come back through the 2 beads here to make my little circle, and then up through the connector bead. Pick up 2 beads. I'm going to come to the base, and I'm going to come through the base bead and the connector bead. Then through the 2 beads of the box that I just added, and then the base bead. And I'm going to continue adding my boxes in this little right angle weave fashion all the way around until I only have one little box left here to add. So once you get all the way around, your piece is going to look something similar to this. Now you'll notice here, we still have one little section we have to finish. Now this section is a little bit different because you'll notice here, instead of having 2 beads already in our little box, we have 3. We have 1, 2, and 3. So I only have to pick up 1 bead to finish out this last box. So I pick it up, I'm coming out here, I'm gonna take my needle and I'm gonna come through 1, 2, 3, and then this bead again. So I go through 1, 2, pull this through, okay, then 3, and then the one I just added, which is going to be that 4th bead there. Now at this point, what I would suggest you do is I would suggest that you go ahead and put a needle onto this thread and get rid of this short tail thread. So don't just cut it off. You need to stitch it through a few beads and weave it through and get rid of our short tail thread. So I've gotten rid of my thread. I have one complete ring, and now I'm ready to start the bottom part of the encasement. So I'm going to flip this over so that you can see this is the one I haven't completed yet. This is what we're going to be working on here, is this bottom part of the encasement. So we have to make a section here to add a strip on the bottom so it's easier to add our ring band itself. So we're not going to be picking up our 15s all the way around. You'll notice here that we've got some Delicas and 15s. So when we start out, we're going to pick up a Delica and go through the next Delica sticking up. Pick up a Delica and go through the next Delica sticking up. So the first 2 beads that we put in are going to be Delicas. Now I'm going to switch over to my 15 and I'm going to pick up a 15 and come through the next Delica. Pick up a 15, come through the next Delica. So I'm going to add 8, let's see, yeah, 8 total 15s. So you just pick up an 8 or a 15 and go through the next 11 Delica until you have 8 total 15s. Okay, so you can see here I had 2 Delicas and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I put in 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, you only want 8, not 9. That's what happens when you get bead happy and you just start throwing beads in there. There we go. So I've got my 8 beads. Now I pick up 1 Delica and come through the next Delica. 1 Delica and come through the next Delica. All right, so I've got Delicas here and here, 15s, and now I'm going to put in 8 15s. And I'm going to work across, just putting in those beads. The biggest thing is, at this point, it's going to look a little bit scrunched up on the back. So really pay attention and make sure you're getting those correct beads, going through the correct Delicas here on the back as you're adding these 15s. Because it's going to be really easy to skip those or to not go in the right one. So just really make sure that you're going through the correct one and pull the thread tightly as you work as well. All right, this should not be a straight circle anymore. It should be doming on the back of your piece at this point. So it should not be just a flat ring anymore. It should have a dome to it. So let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I need one more 15. So I'm going to pick up that 15 and I'm going to go through my Delica. Pull it tight. So this is what it should look like. Now I'm going to stitch through the beads or pass through the beads, however you want to say it, to get to a Delica that is sticking up on the other side of my encasement. So it goes back to that old saying, it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you don't see the thread. We don't want to see thread on the outsides of our beads. So we just want to come out of one of the beads here on the other side. And I'm going to give it a little tug so that it looks something similar to this. So now that we've got to the other side, we're ready to put our stone in. I know some of you have a really hard time with encasement, so I'm really hoping this works really good for you. So what we want to do is we want to take the piece and we are going to set it down into the encasement. Now, when you set it down, if you have done it super tight, it is not going to fit well. This is why I said, you know, pull it tight, but don't do any sort of knots or anything like that. This will loosen up, all right? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to set my stone in here. And I'm gonna work around like this, just pulling the sides up around my little piece here. Oh, I love what the color it's turning. I love it. And I'm gonna give the bottom a little tug while I've still got it here in my hand. I'm still giving it a little bit of a tug. And now you see there that it fits really well. So it's going to take you just a minute to get it in there, but I promise you, it will get on there, all right? Because just give the sides, once you get it on there, give the side a little tug so that it tightens that bottom back up for you. We don't want to really go through to reinforce this or you'll never get it on. So that's why you want to make sure that you do it just like this. Just loosen it up, get it on there, and then give that thread a little bit of a tug just to tighten that back up. So here's what we're going to do. We're now going to put in a round of Delicas. So I'm going to pour me out a little bit more Delicas here. And I'm going to pick up a Delica. My thread is coming out here. So I'm going to go straight across and go through the next Delica that's sticking up. And I'm going to work this all the way around, picking up a Delica and coming through the next Delica that's sticking up. And as you work this round, if you want to, as you're going through the Delica that's sticking up, you can give it a little tug upwards and a little bit of an upward motion just to help pull those sides up a little bit more. You don't have to tug really hard, just kind of tug it enough to get it in place there. And you'll see there what that's doing. So I'm going to work around just putting a Delica in and giving it a little tug all the way around. Now once you go all the way around, you'll see there that you have a nice little line all the way around. I've got one bead left here to add, so I pick up my one bead and I go through the last bead of my row and I do a step up. So I'm going to go through 2 beads. So I go through the last bead of the row and then the first bead I added in this round. So that now, pull it tight, this little sucker is in here. Now, here's the thing. If you want the look of it more pulled up onto the stone, like this one is here, you're going to want to do one more row of your size 11 Delica beads. If you're okay with it looking like this, which I totally am, it's in there, it's not going to come out, I'm happy with it, I actually see more of the stone itself, then I'm going to go on to the next step. So again, if you want it more pulled up on the stone like this, you're going to want to do one more row of Delicas before you add these 15s. So at this point, I'm just going to take a 15 and I'm going to go through the next Delica that's sticking up, just like this. And I'm going to do this all the way around, just picking up a Delica, or sorry, a 15, and going through the next bead sticking up. Once I've gone all the way around and I've added all of my 15s, I'm going to go ahead and reinforce the last 2 rows of beads again, meaning that when I get back around, I'm going to go through the Delicas and the 15s here on these last 2 rows. I'm going to go through them all again one more time to reinforce and just pull them a little bit tighter. So continue on with your ring, pop these 15s into place, and then do that reinforcement row, and we will be ready to continue with our piece. As you can see, I have added my 15s and I've done my reinforcement row. So this thing is set in place, no worries. If you look at the side of your ring here, you'll notice that we have our first row of right angle weave and then our second row. And right here in between them, we have these holes and it looks like a hot mess. So we want to fix that hot mess. So to do that, I'm going to stitch down through the beads so that I am coming out of one of the beads here in that middle row. And once I come out of that bead there and I get ready, I'm going to flip it around this way so in case you can see it a little bit better that way. Once I get around, now I'm ready to start using my size 11 seed beads. So I pick up an 11 and I'm going to go straight through the next bead on that row. And you may have to wiggle to get it through. On this one, mine actually went through two Delicas, so I'm just going to back out of one of them. Sometimes it's easy to go through two and then back out of one than it is to just go straight if it goes straight through. So you can see there that I'm putting these size 11 regular 11s in so that it pops into place. It covers up that little hole and it straightens up my Delicas and makes them look really nice. This is really good if you use a Toho as well for this step, just because the Toho is going to take up even more room because it's just a smidge bigger than a Miyuki. But I'm using the Miyuki beads on mine here. So you can see there what a difference that's going to make just popping those little guys in there. So I'm going to work around and I'm going to put these size 11 seed beads in place to finish out this part of the ring. So once you get those regular size 11 seed beads popped into place, this is what your piece is going to look like. So when I flip it over, I stitch to where, once I finish this, I stitch to where I'm coming out of a 15 before two of my Delicas that I added. This is where we're going to work on making a strip that's going to go across. The strip is going to help us attach the ring band really easily, but at the same time, the heat from our finger will still be able to get through those beads to change the color. So now that I'm coming out of there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a Delica and I'm going to go through the first Delica sticking up here. Then I'm going to pick up a Delica and go through the next Delica that's sticking up. This is going to be a little bit harder because your beads are tight here along the bottom. So just be patient with these first couple of little beads you put in. There we go. Okay, and now just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to pick up a Delica and I'm going to come through the 15 here on the end. So that now I have a strip that looks just like this. Now I'm going to stitch around through my bead so that I'm coming out of this first bead here again. So I'm going to just stitch through the beads. And believe me, at this point, since you've got all these popped in here, it's easier said than done. But once you get through a few, and I'm using a 13, so it's a lot skinnier needle. So it's a little bit, there we go. Use my awl to kind of lever that up to get in. Ha, there we go. And links for like the awl cover, my board, this this Bead Easy system, all of that is going to be below in the video description box. So there'll be direct links to those if you wanted to ever give those a whirl and a try and support some of my beady friends. So you can see here, I'm just stitching around. And again, if you're using a size 12 needle or a little bit bigger, this is a little bit easier, but I just had the 13 right here on my tray, so I grabbed it up and used it, and it's being a little ornery. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to switch needles and continue to stitch around so that I'm coming out of that bead there. Okay, finally got to where I'm coming out of that bead again there. So now I'm going to work back the other direction. I just pick up a Delica and I go through the middle Delica sticking up here. Pick up a Delica and come through the end Delica. Now I'm going to work in the other direction. So I pick up a Delica and I come through the Delica sticking up. Pick up a Delica, go through the next Delica that is sticking up here on my little strip. Now, for the end Delica, because this is an odd count peyote, I'm going to pick up one Delica, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to wiggle the needle under the thread here between the two end Delicas. This first one is the hardest one to get under there. Sometimes I come through this way and it's a lot easier to get through it. So I pull through just like that. I make sure that the bead is in place. And then I'm going to come back through the same bead that I just added. Now I'm going to work regular peyote. So I pick up, I come through, I pick up, I come through. Now I work back in the other direction. So this is my odd count row. So I pick up one, go through, pick up one, go through. And now this time is where we have to do that turnaround. So I pick up one and I go under the thread here between the end two Delica beads. Pull it through. Get the bead in place just like that, and then come through the bead that you just added. And I'm going to continue this until my strip will meet here. And I want to end just like I have it now with 3 beads on, just like this. All right, so if I pull this out, you'll see here that I have the little strip of beads made, and I've ended with 3 beads just like this. So I'm going to lay it down so that it's directly across from where my Delicas are on this side. So I'm going to take the needle. My thread is coming out of this end Delica here. So I'm going to go through the Delica that is sticking up here on this side of the band. Then I go through the bead that is sticking up here in the center of the band, or the base, whatever you want to call it. I go through the one that is sticking up here on the end. And then finally, I go through the one here on the very end of the strip, so that now that strip is connected side to side, just like that. I actually want to finish the connection because, see, this right here is not connected and this right here is not connected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through the beads here that are on the base right under where that thread is. You got to almost kind of hold this 15 out of place so that your thread doesn't get caught on the 15. But see, now this is connected here really well. And then I can stitch through to get to the other side. This is just helping to reinforce my piece a little bit. So that it doesn't matter if I come out here on this little end bead here or here, either one's gonna work. So here or here, just depending on what your needle can get through easiest. There we go. And then I will go through this bead here so that it finishes out that connection. Now at this point, I'm gonna look here And I'm actually going to flip it around this way just because this is the way I'm coming out. And I'm going to count my beads. And I start here, right here where this 15 is. And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've got 10 beads. What I want to do is I want to find kind of an even spot here where I can start the band and have about the same amount of beads here on this side. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I think I'm going to start with the third bead in here on the end. So I'm going to go down through the bead right next to where my thread's coming out. And then through the next bead so that I'm coming to the third bead to the inside. Okay. You see that? So from right here, I came in 1, 2, 3. So when I finish the band, I'll come in 1, 2, 3. So the other side of the band will connect here. So it's going to leave me 2 spots right here in the middle. So we're going to start out. We're coming out of this bead here. I pick up a Delica and I come through the middle Delica of that row. So if I put my finger or my needle across here, I've got a space and then I go through the next Delica. Now, if you want to, I'm going to use the same thread to do the base as I am the ring band. If you are worried that over time your band will stretch and it's going to be too big for you, what I would suggest, and it's going to happen no matter what thread you use, but what I would suggest, number one, I would suggest that you tie off this working thread and just start a new thread for the ring band itself. So that way, if the band breaks or is too small or whatever, you don't have to redo the whole thing just to fix you a new band. So that was going to be the first thing. The next thing I would say on these ring bands, if you're worried, again, that it's going to be loosen up, go through your band several times. The only thing is, if you can make the ring tight to fit tight around your finger to make up for that kind of adjustment, what's going to happen is if you go through the band again after you've kind of made your adjustment, it's going to really tighten up that band, and that band is going to be too small for your finger. So just beware. I would almost tighten up the band itself by reinforcing it before I do the connection here on the bottom again, so that way I can almost definitely know that it's going to be the right size and it's going to be really, really well done for that band. So I pick up a Delica and then I come through the last bead of that row, so that when I do that, and I pull that tight, you'll see there I have 2 beads that are sticking up now off of that row. So I'm going to be working in the other direction. So I pick up a Delica and I go through the Delica that I just added. Pick up a Delica, go through the next bead sticking up, which is going to be that first bead that I added. And then because this is an odd count, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and right here, this is the bead I'm working with, I'm going to go under the thread right there at those 2 beads. I have to use my little awl here as leverage. There we go. And then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come back through the bead that I just added. Then I'm going to work back the other direction. So I pick up a Delica, I come through the next Delica sticking up, pick up a Delica, come through the next Delica that is sticking up. Okay. Now I'm going to work back in the other direction, and it looks like I'm out of Delicas, so let me grab a few more here. So I pick up a Delica, I go through the bead sticking up, pick up a Delica, go through the next bead sticking up, and then this time I take my needle and I go under, pick up a Delica, go under the thread there, my new thread that I have between those 2 Delicas, and then I come back through the bead that I just added. So I'm doing the exact same thing as I did here on this bottom part. So what you're going to do is you're going to continue to work your band until it's to the desired length that you need. Once you have the length of your band, you want to make sure to finish off with the 2 beads here on the end. So not a 3 bead row, but a 2 bead row. So I'm going to bring it around. And remember, I said I was going to come in 3 beads. So 1, 2, 3. So the band needs to go here. So I'm going to go through the 1 bead here on the end. So I'm connecting end to end. Now, I'm not going to pull this tight. You'll want to pull yours tight just because I want you to see where I'm going. So I come through here. So now I'm going to go through the first bead sticking up here on this end. So I'm going to go just like that. Okay, so you see how that's connected. Now I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come through the middle bead of that row. And there we go. Pull this through. Okay. Now I'm going to go through the bead sticking up here on this end of the band. And then finally, I'm going to go through the last bead of the row, which is this one right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this tight, just like that, so that now you can see that both ends of the band are connected together. Now what I need to do though is this last bead, I need to come through the end bead here on the band so that the band is completely connected to the base. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work back, just kind of lock that in place there. And then I'm going to weave through and reinforce where the connection is here on the band really well. See, it's going to take some patience, but you want to weave back and forth through this row so that you have a really good strong connection. So once you get that band connection really good, then you are able to stitch back through the band to reinforce the band and get rid of your thread so that then you have this beautiful new ring to wear. Every time I have worn this ring out town, I have gotten so many compliments out of it. It's such a fun ring, and it constantly changes colors based on your body heat and all of that kind of stuff. So it's such a fun ring to do. Now, I do have a instant download pattern available on my website at offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. And again, that instant download is going to teach you how to encase the 18mm and the changes you would need to make to do the 14mm encasement. Which again is just the little smaller version of the same ring. Now I do have kits available for a limited amount of time that will have all the beads that you need to make one of these beautiful rings with, and it's such a cool project. They work up really quickly once you've made your first one, and they are just so much fun. I know you're gonna love it. So you can find the pattern and the kits on my website at offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. And again, remember to look directly below the video in the video description box. You may have a little arrow that you have to click there, but it's going to have links to all the things that I used today, as well as links to the cover, the Bead Easy system, my bead board, everything. All right. So thanks again. I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time when I'm going to show you how to take this one, which already changes colors, how to take this and make it into a beautiful new bracelet. So you guys have a great week. Bye-bye.